They actually did it. The Houthis out of Yemen, who recently got wrecked by the US military and the British, they responded with their own retaliation attack like they said they would. I will go over all of the details, but let us remember the US military and British took out over 60 different targets in 16 separate locations with a very successful operation to include follow-up operations to clean up the job. And everyone thought, that's it? If the Houthis ever attack again, they are absolutely crazy. Well, the Houthis did attack, and here's how they did it. Now, according to U.S. Central Command, apparently the Houthis launched an anti-ship cruise missile towards the USS Laboon while it was stationed in the southern Red Sea earlier today. Now, it was originally reported that an F-18 launched off of the Dwight D. Eisenhower had actually taken out this missile, but I was thinking it doesn't make sense to have tracked the missile and then launch an F-18, like it takes way too much time. What we now know, again, at the time of making this video, is that there was a land-based jet, and it was already doing operations within the area. It was able to intercept this missile heading towards the naval ship. But again, it's really no surprise that the US military was able to squash a Houthi attack. Let's all be honest with ourselves. The real breaking news is that the Houthis actually had the cojones to launch an attack towards the US Navy after all of these sites have been taken out. Because look, now the ball is back in the US military's court, and the US military and Biden have had to be extremely careful and patient with the Houthis. Let us also remember, the Houthis only do whatever Iran says, and Iran has been extremely aggressive against US military members throughout the Middle East. But when it comes to the Houthis, they have a massive advantage. The Houthis know no one's going to come into Yemen, no ground forces or tanks, Bradley fighting vehicles, nothing. Navy SEALs probably won't even go into Yemen. So the Houthis know, as long as they just keep launching these random attacks, we might get some airstrikes here and there, but who cares? We are the Houthis and we're going to do what we're going to do. Main point being is that Iran realizes that the Houthis have a very strategic operation when it comes to the war in Israel, where the Houthis could quite literally just distract the entire US Navy, distract the media, and allow for Hamas, Hezbollah, and forces up in Iraq and Syria to continue to conduct what they're doing up in the north. When it comes to the United States, the main mission is to make sure nobody goes after Israel, but the United States can't do this if they're dealing with the Houthis. So again, let me reiterate, the Houthis did not complete their task, but at the end of the day, I don't think they care whether or not they hit a US ship. That would be the ultimate biggest win for all of Houthi history. At the end of the day, the Houthis know that the US military, they are very cautious and patient. Let us remember, it took almost a month and a half to 2 months for the US military to finally retaliate towards the Houthis. These are combined attacks from the Houthis towards Israel with drones, with munitions like missiles, also hijacking cargo ships, disrupting world trade, and the US military said, that's it. We've had enough. We need to go after the Houthis. Now again, at the time of making this video, this is sort of quote-unquote breaking news. I'm still gathering my own information here as I'm sitting here. But again, all we know is that apparently there was already a jet in the area able to intercept this missile. But it goes to show that the US military is trying to contain the Houthis into Yemen. As long as the US military can do this, all is good. But there still is a major issue. Again, the Houthis, they are succeeding in their operations in diverting ships and trying to mess up the world economy. There was a statistic put out there by the United States that over 2,000 ships had to divert their course, and this alone had increased economics throughout the world. Again, the Red Sea is a major strait that ships go through, or, sea, and they've all been diverted. So the Houthis, they are doing their job, and they're trying to disrupt world trade. They're trying to piss off the West. Again, I highly, highly, highly doubt the US military would ever send ground engagements into Yemen. But one thing is for sure, Saudi Arabia semi-does. The United States and Saudi Arabia have been trying to contain Yemen as much as they can. But now we find ourselves in a very peculiar situation where even though the Houthis lose, they're still winning by distracting the US military. So this is essentially the story. I don't want to keep reiterating myself, and again, I will keep track with the entirety of the story, but here we are. The Houthis had retaliated. If I'm going to be honest with you, I've been tracking this for a while now. I didn't think the Houthis were going to respond so quickly, but it also goes to show that the Houthis could care less, really, Iran. I thought, and most people thought when I was looking through a lot of forums and other professionals in this space, many people thought that the Houthis were going to wait a very, very long time and then out of nowhere a sporadic attack. And look, the U.S. military really didn't indicate that they were going to keep attacking the Houthis out of Yemen. Whenever the U.S. military does a shock and awe tactic, they really put the ball in the court of the opponent. Again, it's supposed to be shock and awe. It's supposed to disrupt and stop the Houthis' capabilities to do what they did, but it does look like now the U.S. military and British forces, I'm assuming, they're going to have to do something about it. If the Houthis are able to still launch missiles from Yemen, the U.S. military still has a job to do, which is contain the forces in Yemen. And one thing I also just have to throw out there, Biden is starting to change his tune when it comes to the Houthis. Biden and the U.S. government and the DOD, everyone knows that the Houthis are very bad people. It starts with the letter T. You can't say it on YouTube. However, the Biden administration took them off the designated list to help with humanitarian aid into Yemen. But now, recently, Biden actually called the Houthis a T-word organization, and because of this, it does look like, look, all of this, trying to work with the Houthis, trying to be okay with the Houthis, it's over. It looks like the Biden administration and the DOD, they're taking a more aggressive act or action towards the Houthis and really throughout the Middle East. So this is going to be a very fluid situation here, and we'll see what happens.